Okay, so welcome back, and today we're going to talk about averages. So how do we take the average of a group of numbers? Very simple. We take those values, those numbers, we add them up, and then we divide by the total number of numbers that we have. Okay, so another way of looking at it is when we deal with measurements, right? So we call this the average, or another term is the arithmetic mean, or just mean. So we can use average and mean interchangeably. So the average is we're going to take all of the measurements and we're going to add all the measurements up, and then we're going to divide by the number of measurements that we took. Okay, that is the average. For example, if you're working in manufacturing and you've got to, let's say you're manufacturing oil unions, and so every hour you've got to do your measurements, right? Tolerance measurements. And so you're going to measure the outside diameter, the inside diameter, you're going to make the height, things like that. And so what do you want to do? If you have a micrometer, you're not going to just take the first measurement. You might take a few measurements, right? Take a bunch of measurements and then average those measurements to come up with a value, right? You might measure several parts and see what the average IO and DO, OD and ID, I mean, for a pipe or whatever it is that you're measuring, right? So that's where averages come in, because again, it's not going to be exactly the same every single time. For example, when you're measuring with a micrometer, it's your measurement you get, especially on the digital ones, right? The measurement you get is going to rely on how tight you're holding it, how much pressure you're applying to the micrometer when you're putting it on there. So all kinds of things. Okay, so it's always good to, in those sorts of things, to take multiple measurements and then take the average. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do some examples of taking measurements. See you then.